Ayusin mo. Lagyan mo rin. Put it somewhere. I'm ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines.
For honoring our invitation to this news conference. And let me also take this opportunity to convey to you the appreciation of our people and government for your coverage of the recent parliamentary elections in our country. However much we may differ with respect to our perceptions of these elections. 11 days have now passed since our country held elections for the Batasang Pambansa, our national parliament. Although the official canvass of the returns still has to be fully completed, I understand 40 seats have not been proclaimed. We have today an already clear idea of the conduct of and possibly the outcome of the balloting. In the first place, it can now be said that the elections have provided a resounding vindication for electoral and democratic processes in our country. Contrary to many fears and predictions, the elections have been proven by at large fair, orderly, and democratic. There have been a few instances of electoral fraud and violence, and I wonder if there is any country where any elections are held without such instances of fraud or violence. But on the whole, our people can fully feel proud and glad about the orderly and peaceful conduct of this political exercise. And if there are truly victors in these recent elections or exercise, they are first and above all our people and our nation. With respect to the election results, it is now evident that the Kilusang Bagong Lipunan has retained its majority in the Parliament, in the Batasang Pambansa, and in accordance with parliamentary practices, thus received a new mandate to run our government. And the election results on the seats still being contested will not alter this mandate. Significantly, however, let us take note here that the opposition made impressive gains in the recent elections, especially in the cities of Manilla, Quezon City, Caloocan, Cebu, and Zamboanga and Cagayan de Oro. 6 cities. But please also note that there are about 54 cities and 73 provinces in our country. In addition, a number of independent candidates emerged victorious, some of them KBL. This is in itself testimony about the overall conduct of the election. But beyond this development augurs well for the future of parliamentary democracy in our land. I personally hope that the new complexion of the Filipino Parliament will bring to birth a dynamic two-party system in the Philippines, that in the work of the Batasang Pambansa, this will sharpen the process of legislative deliberation, policy making, and that in future elections, this will serve to focus alternatives and choices before the nation. In another respect, the parliamentary elections have unequivocally shown the overwhelming support of our people for democratic political processes and the rejection of the programs of both the communist insurgents and the advocates of election boycott, or the other groups of subversion. The voter turnout in the elections was the highest in nearly 3 decades of Philippine election. And this is in spite of the physical, violent opposition by alleged peaceful boycotters as well as the NPA, the subversives and terrorists. In spite of all this campaign of intimidation and terror mounted by subversives and insurgents to derail the balloting, in spite of all the killing, in some instances, some of the teachers were ambushed and killed when they were carrying all the election materials to the voting centers. In spite of all of this, there was a good turnout. Overall, therefore, the elections bear a clear and incontrovertible message for and in favor of parliamentary democracy in our country. There is in this message for the national leadership and the majority party, just as there is a message for the parliamentary opposition. We all must fulfill our responsibilities to the people, and we must turn our common attention now, whatever the parties we represent, to the tasks and the problems at hand. For the party that has been returned to power, the KBL, its first business will be to form a new government, which will take over after the 30th of June, in accordance with parliamentary practice. All the government men, in keeping with tradition, have already tendered their resignations as members of the cabinet. This means that at this point, we have a holdover cabinet until June 30th. Let me emphasize, however, that this refers merely to cabinet members. Resignation does not affect the military or the civil service. In these present states of transition from the holdover cabinet to the new government, and from the old batasan or the interim batasan pambansa to the regular batasan pambansa, we must stress the need for an orderly and efficient passage of plans, programs, policies, responsibilities, and powers, as the case may be. I would emphasize this particularly with regard to matters relating to peace and internal security situation of the country, for we must be especially concerned about continuing efforts to prevent the easing of tensions in the aftermath of the elections. The present holdover government must be prepared to hand over to the new government the plans for the maintenance of peace and security, including whatever unfinished matters there may be relating to the elections. This may include the protection of the ballot boxes, personnel who participated in the orderly conduct of elections, and their security. This must involve the review now of places and incidents where subversives and terrorists succeeded in snatching ballot boxes, as well as persons like the 2 teachers in Zamboanga and Occidental Negros. I understand in Albay alone, 255 ballot boxes representing 61,000 votes were snatched by apparently NPA subversives. This must also involve a full review of all the instances of violence during the election campaign and subsequent to the elections, including the recent murder of General Tomas Caringal in Quezon City, Northern Sector Commander. All of us have reason for concern about the recent wave of violence and challenges to peace and order because of the pattern of terrorism and intimidation, coercion, which it shows. And apparently the message that they are conveying to us, that they are going to go through with this program and this policy of terrorism. Already we know of the heightened campaign of subversive groups to undermine the elections, to prevent people from voting, that we all know, to intimidate the candidates from campaigning, and to prevent law enforcers from policing the elections. The successful conduct of the elections, however, fully shows that these efforts failed. But now it would appear that their campaign of terrorism and violence is not over. In this, I believe, is a message which the entire nation must take to heart. The whole country, all our people, not just our government, not only the majority party, nor the people at large, but the opposition as well, since the opposition have indicated their close communication to the subversive terrorists of our country. Our very democracy and our republic are being challenged, and we must close ranks to meet this threat to the nation. I repeat what I have always said. I do not consider the legitimate opposition our enemy in any kind of exercise, but I do say that the subversive terrorists who seek to undermine our government by violence and who seek to obtain political authority through the barrel of the gun are our true enemies. They have been our enemies in the past. They are our enemies now, and they will be our enemies in the future. In the same spirit of providing a smooth transition from the interim Batasan Pambansa to the regular Batasan Pambansa, the Batasan will hold its final session on June 4th. The agenda of this final session is to specifically consider the outgoing Assembly's performance, reports, and to discuss proposals and measures for the smooth turnover of work from the interim Batasan Pambansa to the incoming Parliament, to the regular Batasan Pambansa. This final session is part of the Batasan's regular calendar and should not be construed as a special session of that body. I did consider a plan to call the Assembly to a special session on May 28th, which was submitted to me. I subsequently rejected the plan because of the proximity of the date to the 4th of June. It is not true that the agenda of the forthcoming session includes the consideration of a proposal to add more appointed members of the forthcoming Parliament. Incidentally, it is not true that I appoint 17 new members. Rather, I choose from the nominated list the sectoral members from the Kabataan Barangay, or the youth, the industrial workers, and the agricultural workers. We all are especially concerned at this point about ensuring the fullest measure of response and respect to the will of our people as expressed in the recent parliamentary election. In that light, we will focus attention on bringing to final resolution all pre-proclamation electoral contests in various places, as well as those protests that may be filed within the 10-day period after proclamation, which are regular political contests. We shall take care that all attempts to frustrate the electoral will be prevented. In that light, we ask all the parties and our people to make common cause in meeting the problems and tasks at hand. We have an election law. We must follow the procedure and steps provided by that law. We cannot, as some of these violent protesters nowadays under the leadership of UNIDO would insist, make a proclamation without even canvassing the returns or checking and determining the genuineness of such returns. These are provided for by law. The KBL can only reiterate what I have said. We will see to it that the winning candidates will be proclaimed, but in accordance with the procedure of law. And we will resist any effort at intimidation, coercion, and violence that seeks to harass, embarrass, or suspend or prevent the performance of official duty by the Board of Canvassers and by any official boards or groups that have anything to do with proclamation. But we shall adopt the policy of maximum restraint. I have issued the orders, and these shall be followed by the military. The national agenda is full, and there is much that we can all do to meet it. I challenge the opposition to perform their duties in accordance with the law. Thank you. And now I am ready for questions.
As customary, Mr. President, the first questions will be asked by the President of the Malacanang Press Corps.
Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning, Vic.
By the way, Mr. President, I've been talking with some foreigners lately, and one of their persistent questions was, and I quote, "Is your President as healthy and vigorous?"
A jogging run for, say, half an hour. But anyway, I really don't have a makeup artist. I do dub some powder as recommended by the ladies of my staff. But makeup artist, yes, somebody did come and see me, but I told her not to touch my face because I might look like some of these lovely ladies here wearing red in the lips and things like that. No, I sometimes twice a day, every afternoon. And that my problem now is how to keep my weight down, because I have a tendency to putting on weight like most everybody beyond 60. I exercise well, I eat well, I sleep well. I have no nasty or mean intentions against anyone, so I enjoy my life.
Another question, sir. I gathered from your opening statement.
Well, no, now that we can attend to the subversives and terrorists, let's see how they will stand up to our regular troops. You see, we have been too busy attending to these riots and demonstrations, and is bad propaganda, black propaganda, which has overwhelmed the legitimate press of the Philippines and of the world. The campaign, of course, took most of our time. Now everybody can attend to peace and order. And I've taken an active part again in preparing all the counteractions. The COMELEC has released some of the units that were kept in barracks for the campaign, and now they can be activated and utilized against the NPA. For that matter, now we can call upon the people to think in terms of the country, not of politics. As I said in the last press interview, let's not keep on playing politics, petty politics. I call upon the opposition, I call upon the people. Drop all of this divisiveness, which is all exciting, fascinating, but does not help our problems, the peace and order and the economic crisis. I note that some of the units that have been released by the COMELEC have been very active in the South, and you see the results of casualties on the part of the NPA.
Thank you, sir.
Incidentally, on casualties, there was a news magazine report to the effect that we had suffered 275 casualties and then another 112 or 11 in the election day. That's a little exaggerated. According to our records, from January to 1 week after the elections, there were 113 casualties, most of them civilians and military men, and 90% caused by NPA, or the subversives and terrorists, as well as the MNLF.
We can assume, sir, that the situation is under control.
I think we are on top of the situation now. we'll have to keep on drawing from the units that are being kept by the Comelec, because we need them now.
Thank you. Mr. Stabler of New York